Hello, welcome to Board Game Madness. I'm Mike Ganade, and we are in round 2 of our tournament to find out my favorite game in my own collection. In this matchup, we have a close one as far as seeds go. We have the number 8 Obsession versus the number 9 seed Architects of the West Kingdom. Now, if you're looking for an overview of either of these games, please go back to the round 1 videos where these games beat whoever they were up against. I don't remember exactly who it was. But in those videos, I give a quick overview of each game. But to keep round 2 videos a little more direct and quicker, we are going to skip past that overview and go right into a head-to-head. And I'm going to do my best to cover new ground when I'm talking about things in each category. So with that, let's start with production. So what I've been doing with, or what I think I'm gonna do with production is I'm going to talk about sort of my single favorite component from each game in each of these games, and then sort of try to weigh or explain how that component sort of defines why I think the production is better in that particular version of the game. So first up is Obsession. My favorite components in Obsession are by far the custom meeples that represent all the waiters and footmen operating at your estate. Now, Architects of the West Kingdom, I would actually say that one of my favorite components, it may be the board. I find the board art very good. I also generally just like the art and aesthetic of these Garphill game titles. So I also like the cards that you're building and the people you're recruiting as well. But there's some nice custom meeples too. I think for me, when it comes to production, if we're sort of focusing on the negatives, there's very few negatives I can say about Architects. The only negative I could say is if this art style in the front of the box is not for you, that's what the game looks like, and you're not gonna, it's not like the artwork on the front doesn't match the artwork on the cards in the game board. Like, this is the theme and the look of the game, and if that, I know this art style is very distinct. I personally like it a lot, but some people may not like it. Some people may complain that this doesn't have a good organizer. Everything's jammed into a small box, but I personally like that. Whereas Obsession, the thing that bothers me about Obsession, actually, most of my critiques about Obsession are with the art and production overall. I don't particularly like the colored tiles that go into your estate. They're literally just brown, like wallpaper tiles. They're brown, blue, like red, purple, and green. And I get that each one needs to have a category, but I would have loved to have some art with the gazebo or the thing I'm building to bring me into the game a little bit more, rather than just these wallpaper tiles. That actually takes me out of the game a little bit, and it's a real bummer to me. The artwork, the sort of portrait black and white artwork for the game, I think that works fine. It certainly makes sense, but they all are small pictures on the cards. And in general, the graphic design for Obsession isn't quite the same level of production than Architects. I think you can tell the difference between, you know, Kayenta Games, which this may be their only title, it's the only title I know of, versus Garphill Games, which has a ton of games under their belt. The production is just a little bit more what you expect to get out of a box, whereas Obsession's a little more indie. And I love them for being indie, but when you're looking at production straight, this game versus this game, I think Architects is stronger. Now, gameplay-wise, this is a really close one. I mean, not only is the seating close in Board Game Geek, but we have two worker placement-esque games here. In Obsession, you're using your workers to cater to people at a party or event that you're choosing, and you're choosing an event from, you can almost think of your events as workers because you only start with like 4. You're picking an event, and you're picking cards to play and workers to work that party. And thematically, I love the ties to, I think that's very thematic of what's going on in the game. You know, it's sort of Downton Abbey the game, which I mentioned in its previous matchup. But, that's the core game. There is some like worker placement, matching workers to the right cards in this game. Architects, I think, is doing something a little more interesting with game mechanics, which is every worker you place at the same spot becomes more efficient. So it's about loading up at certain locations and getting this efficiency going, and then driving people to arrest your figures and getting bonuses that way. And that's a way to clear your figures back. You have to be arrested first. So the way workers return and the way workers work in this game, it's doing something interesting with worker placement mechanically. As far as what people don't like about these games, I'm not even sure. I would say personally, mechanically, the things I don't like about Obsession is the only thing you're really doing with other players is competing with them for a certain tile type each round to win the Royals favor. And the way you win the Royals favor is sort of like, I think it should be a little more substantial, and there should maybe be more criteria for it because they're really strong cards that you get when you win. But that's sort of the only competition or interaction you have with other players. There's not really a lot else you're doing between players other than you're throwing your parties and building up your estate, they're throwing their parties and building up their estates, and then at the end of the round, someone's going to win the royal cards, which are really strong, based on the events you threw. And that's pretty much the only competition other than victory points in this game and interaction. And that type of interaction is a negative in Euro games in general to me. I think that's one of the pitfalls Euro games falls into. Whereas Architects is actually pushing interaction in a Euro game in an interesting way by creating this optimization engine and driving other players to capture your workers. And it's a funny thing because it creates this take that mechanism, but it's also not a take that mechanism because as you're driving up efficiency at one location and incentivizing everyone else to arrest you, you also want them to be arrested because that's how you get your workers back so you can place them in new locations. You can run out of workers in Architects, and that's a big problem. So playing with that interaction between players is such a unique thing in Euro games that I think game mechanics wise, I have to give it to Architects. I mean, I really like that about Architects. It's really doing something interesting with worker placement. It's not about blocking people. It's about driving people to capture your workers to get them back. It's this interesting return and placement mechanism. So moving on to theme, we have Architects winning here in the first couple categories, but I think thematically, Obsession is the clear winner here. Architects is thematic. As you spend more workers to a place, it makes sense that you become more efficient, and you are certainly building cards and structures to score points, and being Architects of the Kingdom, you are doing what the title says, but it takes place in this West Kingdom, which is sort of a generic 800 AD feudal medieval type setting that isn't particularly alluring to me. Obsession is a super unique theme. I mean, name one other game that's about throwing parties and having footmen and under butlers attend to your parties and your guests. It's a super cool theme. The theme, if this theme isn't interesting to you, don't bother getting this game because so much of what makes this game fantastic is the Downton Abbey type theme and how well it works together. I love the theme of this game. I think it's super unique, and I think the mechanics and everything you're doing lend well to it. You're literally picking a party or event to run at your house, fixing up your house as you go, and then making sure you have enough staff to take care of all the people that you're inviting over. And my favorite thematic part of this game is that there are some less desirable people cards that have funny flavor text about how they're gossips or they're an American, They're an American with new money that we don't really want them at the party, but at the same time, they've got a great bonus if they come because they have a lot of money or whatever. So I love the theme in this game. The theme is what, every time I bring this to the table, if that is what makes me love Obsession, is the theme. So let's go to replayability. Replayability-wise, nothing drastic jumps out to me at either of these games that give you a lot of replayability in the core box. In Obsession, each family has a slightly different like starting condition or special ability, quote unquote. But a lot of times it's just like they start with more rep. They have an extra card that they start with. It's sort of like very simple asymmetry. It's nothing major. They have some slight, each family has a slight advantage sort of to start off with. So Architects is very similar when it comes to replayability. They have a normal side where everyone is just playing a color and the player boards are the same, or they have a variable setup where each faction has slightly different setup situations and an ability. So replayability really comes down to the core loop of the game and how much you enjoy that. And in this case, I think both games, being as close as they are, I don't think there's a clear winner here as far as replayability goes. I think both of them have about the same amount of replayability. It really comes down to how much you like the core game. So the fact that I personally prefer the game mechanics of Architects slightly more than Obsession means that I guess the replayability is a little bit stronger. I'd rather play this game a lot of times in a row with the different strategies than Obsession personally, as shown by winning the mechanisms category. But I think replayability truly is a tie here. I don't think one is stronger than the other. But when you take into account my preference of game mechanics here and my preference of production, I think we've got a clear winner here, even though it's close. Again, this is very subjective. These are two similar Euro games, but for me, what puts Architects over the edge, and what I think you may like about it, and why you may agree with me with it beating Obsession, is Obsession's theme is fantastic. It is super unique, but the production and overall artwork of Architects is more immersive and slightly better in my opinion. And gameplay mechanism wise, the interaction between players of this game and how workers work, and the interesting way of looking at worker placement in a different way and how it makes you think differently about worker placement or Architects, I think makes it a strong winner in this case. And it's part of the reason I have this in my collection. I love teaching people worker placement and then being like, oh, check out, this game is the same thing. It's worker placement, but you've got to change the way you're thinking about worker placement with this game. Or at least tweak it slightly because of the way the strategies work. So for me, I'm putting Architects through to round 3. It's the game that I would want to play more and bring out of my collection more to play. Slightly, although Obsession is a fantastic game, and if the theme was really important to the players at my table, I would certainly pick Obsession. So that's the end of this matchup. Be sure to like and subscribe to this video, and we will catch you in our next video. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.